Welcome to the training video for the Student and Clinical Instructor Performance Instrument, or SCIPAI. This video provides an overview of the exact-based workflow for each of the four stakeholders, the DCE, the student, the CI, and the SCCE. But before we dive into the workflow, let's talk a little bit about research. The psychometric properties of the SCIPAI are the focus of a research study by Sean Gallivan, Tricia Renner, and Taylor Foster from the University of Dayton in the Department of Physical Therapy. Any program utilizing the SCIPAI and EXACT is invited to participate by opting in to share your program's de-identified data with the University of Dayton. In order to opt into the study, you need to simply send an email to both Megan and Kunal at EXACT authorizing the release of your de-identified data. Once you've opted in, clear instructions will be provided to you regarding the assignment of ID numbers for your students and their clinical instructors. Simply provide the EXACT team with those ID numbers and we'll take care of the rest, including setting up the SCIPAI for the first clinical experience that will be a part of the research study. While EXACT will be setting up the SCIPAI for your first clinical experiences, here are the steps that you'll need to follow for each of your subsequent clinical experiences. First, go to Placements by Session. Click the Session Setup arrow associated with the session that you want to activate the SCIPAI for. Here, we'll work with Clinical Experience 1. Next, you'll add the SCIPAI activity to the student's to-do list by going to Session Activities, adding an activity, and selecting Eval Summary from the drop-down. This is the activity that's added for any type of custom form for your students that they may be filling out. If your program uses other forms, you might even already have Eval Summary on your student's to-do list. Next, you'll set the form label, or the label that the students will see for this activity on their to-do list. We suggest something like SCIPAI, short, simple, sweet, and easy for them to find. Next, you'll upload any documents you'd like for your students to have as a quick reference throughout the process. If you're participating in the research study, the Invitation to Participate document is a perfect fit here. This way, students have quick access to the description of the study and can easily share the document with their clinical instructors. After uploading your reference document, include any instructions you may have for your students, for example, pointers on the frequency with which you'd like them to complete the form, and then click Save. After you've clicked Save, the Eval Summary, along with the student-facing label SCIPAI, should now appear on your list of activities. You can use the arrow icons to change where it appears on the list. And you'll also be able to check the reference document you uploaded by clicking Click Here to see that Invitation to Participate doc or any other document that you may have uploaded. Now that we've set the stage for displaying the form to students, we need to select which form it is we'd like to show when the students go to Eval Summary. We'll do that by clicking on Evaluation Setup. Click Assign Form and choose the SCIPAI from the list of forms that your program has activated. Again, if you use multiple custom forms, you might see others added in here. Save your selection, and then click the green Edit pencil next to the SCIPAI to make any changes that are needed. And then set the publish date and due dates. The publish date is the date on which the form is first visible to students. Choosing any past date will make it immediately visible, and choosing a future date will make it invisible to the students until that date arrives. The due date is the date on which the last form is due. For example, if you have a 10-week experience where students will fill out 10 weekly forms, you should set this date to be the date by which the 10th form should be submitted. After you save these changes, your students are ready to go. Because the frequency with which each program wants their students to complete the SCIPAI differs, students are tasked with initiating the form. Think of this as asking students to print a copy of the paper form on a regular basis each time they needed one. Just as they would have printed a copy of the form each Monday, they now come to EXACT to initiate a copy of the form each Monday. Let's take a look at how the students will do that. First, they'll go to My Placements, Then they'll select the clinical experience in which they're currently participating. And they'll see SCIPAI on their orange right side to-do list. Before we look at the form itself, let's take a moment to inspect the two icons that we see to the right of the form name. The first is the instructions that we wrote when we set up the form, letting students know the frequency with which they should complete it. The second is the quick access to that reference document that we uploaded before. If students would like to share this document with their clinical instructor, they can easily download the PDF with the icon on the upper right and send it to their CI by email. But as we mentioned, in order to initiate the form, the student clicks on the form name. Next, they click on Add New to initiate a new copy of this form. Once they've done that, they'll select the form they want to make a copy of, in this case, the SCIPAI. And then they'll choose their clinical instructor and SCCE from the drop-downs provided. If the drop-down menus don't contain the correct names, perhaps the CI has changed, the contact information hasn't been added, students can check the box to add a recipient manually. For example, a gentleman named Amrit, who may be serving as the student's CI. After adding the recipient, they'll then appear in the drop-down menu for selection. Here we see Amrit, who was just added as a CI. Moving forward, Amrit will always appear as an option for selection. Manually adding a recipient is a one-time activity. The clinical instructor must be selected, whereas the SCCE is optional. This is to account for the fact that from time to time the CI and the SCCE are the same person. Only one CI can be selected to receive the form. If the student is working with more than one CI, they should select the primary CI during this step. We'll talk more about how multiple CIs can collaborate when we talk through the CI workflow. Each time a new form is initiated, the student must select their CI. This is to account for the fact that the CI the student is working with may change from time to time due to vacations, planned rotations, or other unforeseen updates. Once the recipients are selected, the student clicks Save, and the form is initiated. Once the form is initiated, 3 things happen. First, an email is sent to the CI providing them with direct access to complete the form. Second, an email is sent to the SCCE providing them with direct access to view the form. And 3, the form appears here for the student to complete. We'll take a look at the email that the SCCE and CI receive in a moment, but first let's look at how the student will complete the SCIPAI. As we said, the third thing that happens when the student hits save is that the form appears for them to complete. They simply click the teal arrow and begin to fill out the form. At the end of the form, they can save their work to return to it later or submit. Once the form has been submitted, the student's name appears in the column for last updated, since they were the last stakeholder to update the form. The process for clinical instructors is much the same. It all begins when the CI receives an email with a link that takes them directly to where they need to go. No need for a username, a password, or any login to remember. Once the link is clicked, they'll see the SCIPAI and click on the I icon to begin filling out the form. Once they've completed the form, same as the student, they'll have the option to save their work and return to it later, or submit the form. If there's 2 CIs working with one student, this is where the first CI would be able to fill the form, click Save, and then return to that email that they received with the access link. Forwarding that email along with the link to the second CI allows the second CI to click the access link, see the work that the first CI saved, contribute to it, and then click Submit to submit the form on behalf of both CIs. The SCCE follows the same process as the clinical instructor, receiving an email with a direct link to the evaluation, click on the I icon, and view the form. While the student and CI are actively working on the form, nothing will be visible. As soon as both the student and the CI have completed the form, the answers from both will be visible to everyone. Student, CI, SCCE, and school will be able to log in to see the side-by-side comparison after both the CI and the student have completed their work on the form. Speaking of which, let's take a look at how the school reviews the completed forms. Completed SCIPAI forms are reviewed in the same place that any other completed session activities are reviewed, by going to Placements by Session and clicking the post-placement arrow associated with the session that you activated the SCIPAI for. All the way at the bottom of the orange right side to-do list is Custom Evaluation. This takes you to the landing screen for reviewing the completed SCIPAI forms. You'll see 3 numbers on this landing screen. In the gray bubble, Applicable For tells you how many students have been tasked with completing the SCIPAI. In the green bubble, you'll see Submitted, which tells you how many unique forms have been completed by both the student and CI and are ready for you to review. The red bubble, or the Not Submitted bubble, tells you how many students have yet to submit even one SCIPAI form. You can click on any bubble to see an itemized list of the students associated with that count. You can also click on the orange Report bubble. This gives you an Excel data dump with the raw responses to all of the submitted forms for you to review and analyze. If you'd like to review the forms on screen, click the Summary tab. Then select the green arrow next to the form you'd like to see. Again, only once the student and CI have both submitted their work will the school or any other stakeholder be able to see the responses for the form.